All right. Good afternoon, everybody. We're a couple minutes after the hour. I know we've got some more folks still coming in, but want to be mindful of your time. I want to welcome you to this information session about our 2022 Equipping the Local Church grant cycle. My name is Heather Lear, and I have the privilege of serving as the Vice President for Grants at the Foundation for Evangelism. And I'm happy to be joined today by Barbie Bowser, who's our Director of Communications, who's working the technology magic for us behind the scenes. So thanks, Barbie, for joining us.
Absolutely.
Yeah, and just want to thank all of you for your interest and for taking the time to join us today. And also thank you for your ministries and everything that you're doing to serve Jesus in your communities. We hope this information session will be helpful. We understand that maybe applying for a grant might be a new experience for a lot of you. So hope this next 45 minutes or hour or so will answer some questions or ease some anxieties you may have about the process along the way. Just so you know, as I worked on this presentation, I took the answers that you submitted in your registration form and kind of compiled what we'll be going over today to address most of those questions. But for some reason, if your particular question isn't addressed, at any time you can enter that into the chat, and Barbie will be working on compiling those questions throughout our time together, and we'll have some time at the end of the session to address anything that I might not have covered. And so with that, let me make sure I can get this advancing. There we go. Let me just give a little introduction. For those of you who aren't familiar with the Foundation for Evangelism, we are a Wesleyan tradition foundation based out of Lake Junaluska, North Carolina, and currently are not affiliated with any one single denomination, but are able to partner with and work across our Wesleyan family, and are so grateful for our generous donors who make our ministry possible. And so just so you know a little bit about us too, we've been around for over 70 years, and throughout that time, our mission and our purpose has been a catalyst to equip disciples to share the good news of Jesus Christ. And currently we have 3 areas of focus. And so you guys are here for our local church focus. And this is our first grant cycle that we've launched since we've developed these 3 areas. And we're starting with the local church. Also have a focus area around engaging the ministry of the laity. The foundation was actually established by lay people to equip lay folks to be about the work of evangelism. So that still remains a priority for us. And we hope also in 2023 to launch a grant cycle that will help empower laity in their work. And our third area is raising up gospel leaders. Traditionally, that's been funding professors of evangelism, but we understand that leadership is changing in our denominations and want to make sure that all who are in significant leadership positions really get good, solid Wesleyan evangelism training. So we help fund those initiatives as well. So that's just a little bit about who we are for those of you who might be new to the Foundation for Evangelism. But as we get started, I thought, because a lot of questions came in around exactly who qualifies for these grants and who doesn't. So we'll start there and then get into some of the nuts and bolts. So as we envision what this grant might look like and who the funds might be the best catalyst to help serve, we really wanted to focus on smaller membership churches. Folks who have some ideas, who have some dreams, but could use a little financial help to launch those ideas or ministries or projects. So we've got 2 different grant amounts. The first is for congregations, faith communities with 1 to 99 and worship, including virtual attendance. We understand the way we count participation has changed, especially in COVID world, but just those smaller churches. And then more medium-sized churches, 100 to 250. And also a caveat with that classification, we're also open to smaller churches working together. If you're in the same community or district and you're partnering together for a particular ministry, you guys can apply together for this grant. Or if you are a leader or a nonprofit or a coach working with these types of congregations, you're eligible for the medium-sized church grants. Again, we are a Wesleyan tradition organization. So as you can see, we define that as based in the ministry movement begun in the 18th century by John and Charles Wesley. So if that is your theological foundation, that's who we are accepting applications for. And then this particular grant cycle, we do have other projects and initiatives we fund globally, but this grant cycle will be strictly for United States-based churches and organizations. So who does not qualify for this grant? And again, this doesn't mean that there might not be something else down the road or another initiative of the foundation that you may qualify for, but this particular grant, again, non-Wesleyan tradition churches or organizations. Also, we're hoping that this grant helps you really engage ministry in your context, in your local community. So we're not funding mission trips that take a team outside of your community. Also kind of one-time engagement events or service projects. We're hoping that this will be a catalyst for you to really build relationships, ongoing relationships with people in your context. Also not funding campus ministries, sustaining an ongoing ministry or project. We're hoping that this can be something that, again, is an experiment, something new that you're trying or something that you're building or strengthening or taking something maybe that you've tried, but you're really expanding what you're doing. This will also not fund capital improvements, building funds, staff people to do evangelism work for you. This is a congregational effort ministry. And then also, I don't think this will apply to any of you, but not funding nonprofits that are not 501c3 connected with the denomination or recognized as a religious organization. So all of that, let's get into what we are doing. So again, these grant amounts, we have two different awards, the $5,000 awards for the smaller churches, and then the $10,000 for the medium-sized congregations or those clusters of churches working together. I did have one question that came in around a partnership, wondering how the funding worked in that situation. So in your application, there will be one of the congregations that will be the primary, or the district office or whatever it may be. And you'll be responsible for dividing up the funds. So if there's projects you're doing together, where you're using the money combined, and then each church has their particular piece of it, you'll write that out in your budget and let us know how the funding will be used. But that $10,000, it will be up to you to divide that out and to share that. So here's a timeline of the process. So the grant application is actually open already. Some of you have already started in with your application. We've seen those come in, but the deadline will be the end of next month, so February 28th. So you have a little over a month to draft your application and get that in. We'll be reviewing the applications and taking them before our board this spring. So you'll be notified, yes or no. We'll let you know either way in May. If you do receive funding, you'll also receive the list of expectations and the report forms. While we're really excited to help fund whatever you're doing in your area, we also want to learn alongside with you. So we'll be capturing stories and seeing what worked, what you tried that maybe didn't work, that you had to pivot. And so we want to make sure that we're learning alongside with you and can take what you've learned and shared that with others. So there will be some expectations on some reports and some sharing of information and stories. Award money will be released the middle of June. So as you're planning your program, your grant, your strategy, know that is the timeline. So it's up to you, but it would make sense maybe to gear whatever you're doing to launch end of summer, maybe the beginning of the school year. And you'll have your funding in hand by that time. Hopefully late fall, we'll do a check-in with all of those who have received funding just to see how's it going, what are you learning. Again, we're learning along with you and want to hear your stories. And in the spring, we will gather those stories, and your final reports will be due June of 23. We hope to and are confident that we'll have the funding to repeat this grant cycle in 23. So there'll be a similar timeline next year. So if your application is not selected or you realize we're not quite ready to apply, we hope that you'll come next year and apply again. So that's just the timing of this cycle. So the how-tos, we've gone over some of this. Again, this is our Equipping the Local Church grant cycle. We're accepting applications now. They're due the end of February. And how do you go about applying? So I actually took some screenshots that I'm going to walk you guys through that hopefully will be helpful in this process. So we're a small staff, and this is new for us. And so we've engaged a company called Kaleidoscope that has created the platform for us for this grant cycle. So when you go to apply, this is a screenshot of our website. So this is foundationforevangelism.org/grant seeker. And when you go to this page, hopefully you can see right here, there's the apply for this grant button. That's where you enter the portal with Kaleidoscope. It's linked directly to our website. So when you click on that button, it'll take you to this homepage. And one of the great things about Kaleidoscope for me, as someone who's applied for some different grants or filled out forms in the past, where when you start it, you have to finish it. If you close out, everything goes away. One of the good things about using Kaleidoscope is that it lets you start and stop, come back to your application, can also see kind of where you are in the process. So when you click on that begin button, it'll ask you to create an account, a username and password. So that'll allow you to come back to the application. If there are some questions that you're not sure how to answer, you need some more information. So just so you know, that'll be one step you'll need to take, is creating the account here with Kaleidoscope that will allow you to keep working on your application. One other thing, I need to move. You guys are blocking my screen so I can't see. If you can see in the right-hand corner, the bottom right-hand corner, there's a question mark where it says help. If you start working on the application and you enter an incorrect answer, or you need to change something, or you're really just having trouble with the technology piece, click on that help button, and that will contact the Kaleidoscope staff, and they have full-time folks who are there and ready to help you and answer your questions or to reset your application. So if you have content questions on what we're looking for, you can contact me. But if you've got technical questions on the application or the platform, use that help button and contact Kaleidoscope, and they'll walk you through that or reset you or whatever you need. So, and as you can see, there's 25 questions. It'll take you about 45 minutes to complete. There's a couple attachments we're asking for as far as budget and just that you have buy-in with various church leaders. So there's some supplementary material that you'll submit as well. But again, you'll be able to answer as much as you can and then come back to the application once you have what you need. So how do you write a successful proposal? What exactly are we looking for? So in evaluating our grants, and I can speak from experience that there's a couple grants that I've applied for to help fund some of my work and research where it wasn't clear exactly what they were looking for, and I actually never even really got feedback on what was wrong with my proposal or what would have made it stronger. So we want to just take a few minutes here to let you know exactly what we're looking for and what we hope to see and what you need to include in your application, and kind of how we'll be scoring and ranking the proposals. So the way that we're developing our scorecard, as we're calling it, is around the Foundation for Evangelism's values. And we're going to be looking for you to address these following questions that are directly linked to our values. So the first value that we have is evangelistic, and for us, this is primary. This is the why of what you're doing. Your how and your what that you're doing is important, but for us, really the why is the most important. So how will this grant, how will whatever you do be grounded in and share God's story, invite others to enter and develop and deepen their relationship with Jesus? So there's a lot of churches out there doing really great things and serving their communities, but a lot of the things they're doing, you don't have to be a church to do them. They're not operating in a way where they're the vessel for people to really experience and come to know God's love and grace through their service or through their programs. So we want people, through whatever you're doing, to be able to know that the why of what you're doing it is because you're in a relationship with Jesus, and you're so compelled then to share the love of God and Jesus Christ with others and love and serve them. So that why is really important. And so how is your grant designed to help people to experience the goodness of God through what you do? But then also, is what you're doing based on actually getting to know your community and listening to them? Or is it just a program or ministry that you saw work somewhere else? We believe that God has gifted and graced your congregation and put you in your community to make a difference in a way only you can. So show us in your application that there have been conversations and that you've actually listened to your community to develop your program. So that's the first, evangelistic. The second, Wesleyan, holistic practices. This past Sunday, those of you that preach or use the lectionary in your church know Luke 4 was one of the gospel readings where Jesus gives his mission statement of, release, setting the prisoner free, releasing the captives. That's the why, right, of what he came to do. And so how is this program not just addressing spiritual needs, but also physical needs of people in a way that helps people to experience abundant life more completely? So it connects love of God with love of neighbor. So it's not just, do you have a personal relationship with Jesus, or it's not just we're going out to serve people, but it's connecting the two in an intentional way. Alrighty. Our third value is steward. And so, of course, this is financial because we're granting money. But we also, again, wanted to see how are you being good stewards of your people and of your gifts. We've addressed this a little bit, but how are you utilizing your congregational gifts and strengths and resources? to equip disciples to share the good news. So how is this grounded in who you are? Our next value is leadership. As I mentioned, the foundation was created as a lay organization. So this we also weigh very heavily. How are clergy leaders working directly in partnership with lay leaders and sharing that leadership? And how are you lifting up and raising leaders within your congregation? That's a huge value for us. So this isn't just an initiative of, the pastor or even a committee within the church, but how are you helping everyone to come alongside, which leads us to our final value, which is equip. That's the buy-in, right? So it's not just a committee, but how are you empowering your entire congregation to participate in some way? One of the challenges, but also gifts of smaller congregations is you can't be all things to all people. So it's figuring out, who you are and what are the things that you can do really well to make a difference. So how are you bringing the congregation alongside? And then part of this will come in the reporting that we're asking you to do. But how are you not just learning yourselves, but sharing what you're learning and what you're doing with others? And helping your folks to be storytellers in the process, in their everyday life, right? Because those of us who work within the church don't nearly have the potential impact as folks who are out in the world in their everyday lives, doing life with people that would never walk in our doors. So how are we helping our folks to be those storytellers? Let's see. So then that takes us through kind of what we are looking for as you create this initiative program. Again, really focusing on the why, and how is this helping people to experience the love and grace of God through Jesus Christ in what you do? How are clergy and lay working together? And how is what you're doing holistic in your approach? So those are the main things we'll be scoring and looking for. So Barbie, have other questions come in as we've been talking?
We have had a couple.
Mm-hmm.
One question was around in regards to virtual attendance,
Mm-hmm.
just how that should kind of be factored in when looking at which of the two to apply for. So would you look at the views for the online service or just those attending at the time that you launched the service? So like overall views or just the folks that would have participated in the live streaming? Yes.
Sure. I mean, it's up to you to gauge. And also what's the scope of your reach? I mean, if you have folks throughout the week that are somehow touching the life of the congregation, and that $10,000 seems to be more of what you need, and you're looking at total reach of 150 a week with all of the streams and the sharing, apply for that. But I know the virtual people share it, and so hits can be a lot more than maybe just what the people that would typically walk in your door. And even thinking post-COVID, we keep having these surges, so who knows exactly when that will be. But when you're more into the regular life cycle of the church, what do you anticipate your participation to look like? Will those folks who have shared or maybe watched somehow connect with your church more long term? Or is there opportunity to connect them more long term? If that helps, I hope. Others, Barbie?
Yeah, we had several people ask if we could share some examples of what a successful grant application might look like, or a scenario or example kind of what we're looking for, I think, in the proposals.
Yeah, so this is going to, again, the what and the how is going to depend on your particular context. But I can share with you a district I've been working with in Mississippi. One of the congregations there, during the pandemic, they realized that kids were really falling behind in school. So they started a tutoring program at their church, which then led to them getting to know the families. And then they realized by talking with the families, there was a lot of food insecurity as well. And so then that led to them having some dinners for these families. And then from there, some of the families started actually attending the church, and the kids got involved in children's ministry. And so all of that, they saw a need in the community that was real, and not just that they assumed, but invited them to then get to start building relationships and get to know people more deeply. Again, not just a one-off event of we're having this one dinner, but helping them to build an ongoing relationship where they could eventually be invited to come and learn more of what it means to be a disciple. And it started with the kids, but then moved on to the families. So something like that, again, it'll vary depending on your context. They had the space to be able to do that, and also some technology to get the kids on the computers they needed and things like that. So that's just one example, but what's included in that, again, is the listening. There were physical, emotional needs, but it was grounded in their love for God compelled them to love their neighbor, and the love they had received made them want to share that with others and invite them in. It was baby steps. It took a couple steps to get them actually to come learn more and be part of their church, and not all of them did, and that's okay. Because again, the ultimate goal, I think we've spent so much time focusing on church growth and numbers, and I know I've asked you to look at your numbers when you're applying for these grants, but the ultimate goal of evangelism and the mission of the church is for people to know Jesus, right? And to understand that their primary identity is a child of God. Maybe that will mean they'll join us and be part of our church and journey with us. That would be great. But that everybody might not say yes, and that's okay. Or they might find another faith community where they can do that. So I hope that helps with an example of what that might look like.
Yeah, I think so. We've had a couple questions around church plants, whether church plants would qualify under this particular grant.
Yeah, I think if they're already established, and there's a faith community that's there already in these numbers, we do ask in the questions as far as other funding sources. So just would be curious if you are funded or subsidized by other denominational bodies, or what difference this funding would make in your work. But yeah, I think definitely would love to get a proposal.
We have had a couple folks who've asked about a hard copy of the application too that we can give, and we have actually a PDF that could be printed out that we had online for a little while. It's kind of a preview of the application that you could use as sort of a practice run And I think that was the intention of asking about a hard copy, but we can certainly send that out with the slides and the link to the recording when we send that out tomorrow. Also had a few folks just I think a little unsure on numbers, whether the numbers we're looking for are going to be attendance, whether it's going to be membership, just kind of it, and whether, you know, that's kind of a hard fast rule, or if we're if there's some wiggle room there, I think.
Yeah, again, I think for us, as for especially established churches, I understand your membership is far higher than actual participation. But we know this isn't a large amount of money, but we really want this to help spark something. So we want this money to make a difference. So I think, again, the numbers aren't hard and fast. If you're just a smaller congregation, and 5,000 would make a big difference, go ahead and apply for that grant. If you already have something going and could use a larger amount, and you have more people that are impacted, apply for the larger amount. We were just setting the numbers to ensure that folks who maybe feel a little under-resourced at times, or the last church that I served, when I got there, there was no program budget. All of our budget went just to building and people. And so we had to raise money to really do ministry. And so for those churches that are ready to try to do something but aren't really sure how to get the funds to do that, that's what we want it to be for you. So again, I'm not hard and fast about the numbers. Just whatever feels like your lane, go ahead and submit your application.
We've had a few folks asking about how many grants are going to be available. If you want to just touch on that real quick too.
Sure. Ballpark, where the smaller grants, we will be able to award about 20 of those. The $5,000, we have fewer of the 10,000. Though that will be more like 10 to 15 of those. So we're looking 30 to 35 total grants that are awarded.
Okay. Had another question about what kinds of expenses could the grant be used for? If it could be used for instance, travel, training materials and that sort of thing, or if there are certain expenses that would not be included, or things that should be part of that planning for the budget.
Yeah, I think it'll depend on a case by case basis. So if you want to email me specifics, I'm happy to address that. One thing, just as far as training, and we'll get to this as soon as we're done with questions, but in going over some of the values and some of the questions that I asked, if you feel like you're not quite there and you need to do some foundational work or some training work to be able to apply or to get your congregation to a place where they're ready to launch something, that's not what we're looking to fund, that sort of training. We're looking to fund folks who have spent the last couple years in dialogue with their communities and listening to what the needs are. And they've talked to people who are passionate and they're ready to do something, but they just need that little spark and some funds to help them launch. So, and again, we'll get to this in a second, but if you're at a place where you still need to do some initial training or some discipleship work within your congregation to get folks ready to share their stories and do this work, we can provide you with some other resources, but that's not necessarily what this grant is intended to do. If there's minimal travel, locally, that could potentially be built into the budget. But again, not looking to fund something that takes you out of your community and your context. That we're looking for something that will help directly address and provide some sort of transformation in the place where you've been planted.
Heather, we had another question in regards to assistance for non-English speaking churches, whether we have some support in the organization to help with the grant application. Go ahead.
Yeah, possibly. It would depend on the language. But again, I'll give you my contact information, email me, and we'll see if we can get you some support with that.
Okay. I think that's all I see. If I missed any, if you would just go ahead and put it in the chat again.
Yeah, and also this is being recorded, so if there's something you missed along the way, in the next day or so, Barbie will get this up on our website if you want to listen again as you're filling out the application. And again, you can, any particular questions that you have around the type of proposal you're thinking of, you can email me, and I'm happy to talk you through that. So as I mentioned before, if you listen to this and you thought, well, we're not quite ready, maybe next year, but I do need some evangelism resources. That's kind of a strange, scary word for our folks, and we need to do some training and get folks equipped. Just so you know, on our website, we have a tab with resources. We have some books we recommend. We also have some free PDF downloads that are studies that can be used with your leadership or Sunday school, Bible study groups. There's some webinars. There's also links to live training events. So there's quite a range of different kinds of resources that we would love for you to access. And if you have particular questions around areas for growth for your context, you can also reach out to me and I can recommend some specific things. I know Barbie was going to put in the chat some of the webinars I've been a part of. I found it really helpful when the links that are mentioned are put in the chats, and then you can go ahead and click on them and open them up. So she's putting in the link for this resource page as well as the page on our website where you can start the application. So you can go and click on that now. It'll open it for you, so it'll be there when we get off. But yeah, invite you, whether you're ready to apply for a grant or not, to check out our resources, because there's some great stuff on there, primarily from people that whose work we funded over the years, especially in that gospel leader track of funding that we have. But here's my contact information, just hlear at foundationforevangelism.org. Feel free to reach out to me with your specific questions as you're going through the process. Again, for the technical questions, you can work with Kaleidoscope directly. I really probably can't help you in that arena, but as far as content or what you're looking to do or what we're looking for in an application, feel free to reach out to me. And again, that's the URL for how to begin the grant application. And that's all I have for you guys, unless there's any last minute questions. And if something comes up, again, as soon as we log off, you've got my email to follow up.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, Heather, there was a question about when the next grant cycle, when we anticipate that would begin.
Yeah, so we're looking at the same time next year. So to launch the beginning of 23 with awards being made late spring, early summer of 23. So that, in your planning purposes, that would be late summer, fall of 23 to launch whatever you're looking to do. Mm-hmm. Yeah. Any other questions? Again, that was probably like, I know, drinking through a fire hose of material there. But hope that it answered some of the questions that you may have had, and that you don't feel quite as overwhelmed about this process. And I know just how difficult and challenging the last 2 years of ministry have been, in addition to as fast as everything has changed in the world, just putting on top of that the challenges with the pandemic. I just want to again say thank you for your ministries and your leadership, and the ways that you have been and continue will try to be faithful in what you do, and hope that we can help you by partnering in a catalytic way in your next efforts. But if everybody's feels good.
I think the chat has died down a little bit.
Okay.
So
Yeah.
I think we're good.
Okay. Well, great. Well,
Thank
again,
you, everyone.
thank you.
Yeah.
Take care, and let me know if you have any questions.